A lot of competitive freediving and most recreational freediving takes place in open water. Let's look at some of the basic characteristics of different open water environments and freediving in them, so you can plan your sessions. You can enjoy freediving almost anywhere there's water, including coral reefs, temperate water oceans, lakes and reservoirs, rivers, springs, flooded quarries, and human-made environments like aquariums and purpose-built dive sites. Some of these are suited primarily to recreational freediving rather than competition or training. Regardless of the environment, there are 6 general environmental conditions that can affect you: temperature, visibility, water movement, bottom composition, sunlight, and fresh versus salt water. Let's look at each. You can freedive in surprisingly cool temperatures, provided you have the right wetsuit. Water temperature often changes with season and with depth. Choose your freediving wetsuit so you're comfortable at the surface and not overly cold at depth. Remember that uncontrollable shivering is a sign of hypothermia, regardless of the suit you're wearing. If you begin to shiver uncontrollably, end the session. Exit the water, dry off, and seek warmth. Next time, wear more exposure protection. How far you can see can range from 0 to more than 60 meters or 200 feet. Environments differ in visibility, and it can change over time and with depth. Clear water is preferred, but even in ideal environments, you won't always have great visibility. Visibility can affect your diving. For instance, when recreational freediving, you may have to limit your depth so your buddy can follow you. And because you descend and ascend rapidly, be sure you can see enough that you won't run into something. 2 types of water movement that primarily affect you are waves and currents. Small waves up to 1 meter or 3 feet seldom restrict freediving, but larger waves may require more experience and training, and large waves generally prevent freediving. You can generally go recreational freediving in mild current with little difficulty. Swim into the current for most of your freediving session. That way, when you head back, the current helps you instead of fights you. If the current is too strong to easily swim against, it's usually best to find a different site or cancel freediving. If a current starts to carry you past the boat, swim across it to the trail line, a buoyed line floating behind the boat so you have a long target. Then pull yourself back to the boat on the trail line. If you miss, deploy your surface signaling devices and signal the boat to pick you up. Freediving from shore, swim across the current to shore and walk back. Because of the drop line, competitive and training freediving requires very little or no current. In some areas, it is common to have the surface float, support boat, and diver's drift, which cancels out current effects. Bottom composition is mainly an issue when wading in from shore and exploring close to the bottom. There are 5 general types: silt or mud, sand, rock, coral, and vegetation. As much as possible, avoid bottom contact. This especially applies to coral, which looks tough but is actually fragile and easy to kill. Bottom contact tends to reduce the visibility, and you're more likely to get cut, scraped, or entangled. A bright, sunny day makes freediving more fun, and you can usually see farther underwater. But you can overheat in a wetsuit, so keep it peeled back if you can until you're about to get in, and don't hesitate to dip in or spray off to cool down if you need to. Protect yourself with clothing, good quality sunglasses, and environmentally friendly, water-resistant sunscreen for areas your wetsuit and hood don't cover. Freedivers tend to get sunburned in these areas. Stay hydrated, especially in hot climates. You can dehydrate without knowing it, which promotes cramps and reduces your performance. Keep a water bottle in your float or somewhere else where you can get it between dives. Freediving skills apply to fresh and saltwater diving, but there are some general differences worth noting. You need less weight in freshwater, all else being the same. Freshwater environments are more likely to have distinct temperature changes with depth, and they tend to have more easily disturbed bottoms. You need more weight in saltwater, all else being the same. Saltwater environments tend to be more diverse and have more aquatic life. Waves and current are more likely to be issues in saltwater. You'll develop the ability to assess conditions based on what you learn from your instructor, other divers, and experience. You assess based on weather, season, water motion, how the water looks, reports, and freediving you've done at similar sites. Your assessment should include the decision to go freediving or to not go freediving. If your assessment causes you any significant concern or anxiety, see if you can determine how to handle it. If you can't reasonably address the issue, don't go freediving in those conditions. Remember that ultimately, you decide whether to go freediving. You are responsible for your own safety, so only you can make the final decision to dive. Every area has individual factors that differ from other areas. The ideal way to learn these is through an area orientation, which shows you how local freedivers address unique issues that might otherwise cause you to cancel a dive. Many dive operations specialize in organizing freediving, which means they understand how the local environment affects freediving and provide orientations tailored to freediving in the area. Though not common in competitive and training freediving, recreational freedivers may enter and exit through mild surf. This isn't difficult on a gently sloping beach and is sometimes part of the fun, but avoid freediving through large and rough surf. Not only can it be hazardous, but the conditions tend to be poor anyway. Waves break in water only slightly deeper than their height because the bottom slows the wave. You can use this to judge water depth. For example, waves breaking offshore in an area can indicate a reef, sandbar, or other object. Waves also cause surge and undertow. Surge is a back and forth motion you feel underwater as waves pass over. Undertow is the water from broken waves flowing back to sea under incoming waves. The bigger the waves and steeper the beach, the stronger the undertow. It dissipates at about a meter or 3 feet of depth on a gentle slope with mild surf. But be cautious because incoming waves push you one way while the undertow pushes your feet the other. This can make you unstable if you're not careful. Waves tend to come in at an angle, causing longshore current. This tends to move you down the coastline. A rip current results when waves push water over a long obstruction, like a reef or sandbar. The obstruction blocks bottom flow back to the sea, so water goes through an available opening at a high speed. Rip currents may have turbid water and usually create a break in the incoming waves. They can be alarming because they can carry you from shore rapidly, but they dissipate beyond the obstruction. Generally, avoid rip currents, and if caught in one, don't try to swim against it. The general recommendation is to swim parallel to shore until out of it, then swim to shore. In some areas with well-known rip currents, freedivers use them to carry them out to the reef. A few areas have different protocols. A local orientation can help you identify rips and explain what to do if caught in one. Tides are the regular daily rise and fall of the ocean, with or without surf. The difference between high and low tide can be extreme or hardly noticeable depending upon where you are and the day. But they are predictable. Check local tide tables or a tide app for what to expect where you're freediving. Tides can cause currents, change the depth at a given site, and affect visibility. Generally, the best time to dive is the slack at the top of high tide. In most areas, if tidal currents are strong, plan your dive to begin and end an hour before to an hour after high tide peaks. Regardless, exit the water before there is a strong current flowing away from your exit. Visit a local PADI dive center or resort, or use the PADI app if you're not familiar with an area's tides. It's not difficult to enter through mild surf. Start by watching the waves for several minutes to determine the pattern of larger waves and smaller waves. Enter as a smaller wave period begins. Wade quickly to deeper water, towing your float. When a wave comes, turn sideways and lean into it like this. Hang on to your fins. If you drop one in the surf, it may be very difficult to relocate. Continue until it's deep enough to swim. Quickly don your fins and swim out. The idea is to get past the surf zone as quickly as possible. Exiting is the reverse of entering. Confirm the pattern outside the surf zone and swim in when the waves subside. Keep your float ahead of you. When you can stand, remove your fins and wade shoreward quickly. Watch for waves and lean against them as they pass, just like you did going out.